welcome back to Wagwan.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope everybody's doing well.
Hi, everyone.
Evening.
Hi, Monique.
Hi, Rochelle. Hi, Ali.
Evening.
Hi, Grace.
Good. How you guys doing?
Good.
This week's episode of Wagwan, we're going to be talking about why these people don't want to go back to work. We have Miss Daniels here. How you doing, Miss Daniels?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful. Miss Daniels is an HR representative for one of the premier hospitals in New York. And we figured if anyone has any insight as to what's going on literally in the job market on a day-to-day basis, an HR rep would be the person that should have some insight. So I want to thank you, Ms. Daniels, for coming on and offering your insight on why all these folks ain't trying to go back to work.
Go to work.
Rochelle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Daniels.
No, I said thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks for coming on. Rochelle, what are some of the things you think are the reasons why all these folks ain't trying to go back to work?
All right. I think the first thing is that over the years, right, minimum wage has remained the same. However, right, the cost of living has increased like ridiculously. Like you go to the gas station in the morning and gas is like $3. You go back in the afternoon, it's $3.50. You go back in the night, it's $4. Right? Why should I be going to a job, working, killing myself when I can stay home, get some unemployment, and rest myself? Right? I think that's like the biggest question. Why is it that I should kill myself when I can stay home and get the same amount or even more?
I'm confused. I thought
Okay.
in order to get unemployment, you have to have
Be
been
unemployed?
working.
Yeah. They were working and now they're unemployed. Because there has been a big, a lot of people have left their jobs. A lot of people have resigned from their jobs. And yes, you are correct. You cannot get unemployment if you're not looking for a job. So I think there are some qualifications that you have to meet in order to get unemployment.
Is that the only reason you can think of why?
Well, to be honest, I think people are crying, like the employers are crying and saying, oh, well, you know, we don't have no workers. But remember that so many people died during the pandemic, right? We're acting like this is just a regular year. No, it's not, right? A lot of people have actually died. A lot of people are sick because they had corona, and therefore even the job that they were able to do because of the long-term effects of this terrible virus, some of them really can't go back to work, right? So we still have to look at those people.
Gotcha. Sababa,
Yo.
why all these folks ain't going back to work, Baba?
Right now, I think if we were talking about today and right now.
Yeah, we are talking about today and right now.
It's because people don't want to take the vaccine.
Yeah.
Everybody?
We're talking about a year ago. Everybody was afraid of the virus.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel that the big shortage, that job shortage that's happening, is as a result of people not wanting to take the vaccine? That's a lot of people not trying to take a vaccine, brother.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of it. That could be just a certain amount of a number. You know what I mean? Maybe a lot of jobs got closed off now that industries like transportation has went to a minimum. You know, maybe a lot of businesses went out of business.
On contrary, my good man, transportation is in dire straits right now. Whether it's logistics, moving, products with the truckers. Or, I mean, haven't you heard about
The cargo ships.
The cargo ships. A lot of the reason things are
So
are not on the
expensive.
shelves in the stores is because they're saying the stuff is on the docks and they don't have any trucks to go pick up the stuff off the dock. So
What I mean is businesses for a year ago or a year and a half ago that were thriving because people were coming into the city
Right.
after COVID have shut down because people weren't going to the city anymore and they didn't survive that much. You know what I mean? Of lack of business. All those people I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Well,
But that's
it's good.
that's a good point because I feel like a lot of places are mandating that whoever is newly employed or for previous employees, they have to take the vaccine. And a lot of people are skeptical about taking the vaccine. So I do think that is something that will contribute to the amount of people that have already died and the low wages and, all those things kind of work together to give you like a big number in the end.
Right. Right.
Okay. Well, I'm glad all you talking heads got stuff to say. Let's find out from what the expert has to say. What are the facts, Miss Daniels? Let's hit these people over the head with the facts, all their conspiracies.
I want to go back a little because although you're asking about now, we can't really talk about now without going back a little, right? So 2020 in March, the pandemic hits hard, right? The pandemic was already here before March, but in 2020 March, it hits hard. And the first thing that had people out of work were parents, right, who didn't have child care and whose kids were no longer in school. So I feel like that was the first group that was highly affected by not being at work, right? If you didn't have child care, no schools in session, there was no way that you could just leave your child at home to try to head to work. The second industry that got hit hard, I think, was transportation, right? We were losing drivers, we were losing train operators. Transportation was greatly affected. And then on top of that, towards the end of 2020, things started looking a little better, but we were still in the part of the pandemic. We had industries that had been affected by not coming into the city. And so a lot of those big industries were heavily affected. So we're talking hospitality, hotel shutting down. As a result of people not coming into the city, we're talking about large retail businesses closing their doors for a month or more. On top of that, we're talking about city workers that were usually coming into the city. Some of them were able to do their jobs from home, but the ones who weren't able to do their jobs from home weren't really, all at work either. And then on top of that, the vaccine in 2020 became something that at first it wasn't mandatory, but then we headed into this mandatory stage where people had to make a decision. So the facts are, first, we're all hit not knowing what this pandemic was going to be. And then that gave people the opportunity to start making a decision, right, once the vaccine became mandatory. And then even before the vaccine became mandatory, people were nervous to be around other people. So some people weren't going back to work for that. The fear of, if I go around a group of people, I'm going to get sick. So now we're at a place where people have had some time to think about what they want to do with their lives. Right? And some people are leaving workplaces because they felt like they killed themselves. Rochelle said it well earlier. Like you're busting your butt for this company, and then you are out of work for a while. It does give you a chance to reflect, right? The second half of the Great Resignation are people who are not sure that they want to take the vaccine, not sure that they want to be forced into the vaccine, not necessarily doing their own research about the vaccine, and they may not be going back because they don't want to be vaccinated. What I didn't mention earlier was that, then there were the benefits, right? There was the unemployment or the emergency funding that came to people who needed to stay home for whatever reason, right? So that was another motivator not to rush back to work. And then I said during that time that we were heavy in the pandemic, there were a lot of people who had resigned from their jobs. Maybe they were put on furlough and then they were just let go. There were people who decided they no longer wanted to struggle at work and feel like, whatever they were doing, they weren't really appreciated. They got let go, they got furloughed, so they weren't going to go back. And then this gave people the opportunity to really think about what they wanted to do with their lives. So I know a lot of people who left jobs saying, I no longer am passionate behind the work that I'm doing. I want to do something else. And until I figure that out, I'm going to sit at home and be able to be compensated for being home. So there's a lot of factors. There's still so many people afraid of the pandemic and afraid of the vaccine at the same time. So people are not going back because they don't want to be vaccinated. A lot of people haven't necessarily done their homework about the vaccine.
Are you mad at people that don't want to get the vaccine?
I wouldn't say I'm mad at people that don't want to get the vaccine. But what I don't like to hear is I need to do my homework, because now we've had some time for people to be able to do their homework. So I'd rather people just say, I don't want it and I'm not getting it, as opposed to I want to do my research, and those people are not doing the research.
Okay, that's a great answer. I love those. Yeah. That's a little bit, that aligns with a little bit with what I said.
What is your take on that? How do you feel that this should go in terms of the vaccine? Should people take the vaccine or not take the vaccine?
I think it's if we likened it to the idea of a certain group of people, elite, saying, all men, saying women shouldn't be allowed to get abortions. It's kind of like similar to that. And if you put it to that likeliness, it really wakes up the idea of what we're really telling people to do.
In what way, though?
Because it's like, my body, my choice. You know what I mean? How are you going to tell me what to do with my body, what's better for my body?
Mm-hmm. But the thing is, they don't allow women to do that. Because remember, several states have literally, even if you are raped, you have no choice. You have to carry that child. As a matter of fact, they said, even if you're the taxi cab driver who drove that person to the clinic, you can be sued. You can be charged because that person had an abortion. So if they're not giving us a choice with women's body, why is it that people should have a choice now with the vaccine?
Wow. I'm a firm believer in the government is not doing what's best for the people. They're doing what's best for themselves.
Do you believe in voting? That's a whole different story. But I believe if we vote for who we think is the best choice, then we should not complain because we voted for those people. I think a lot of times we do not vote, so we really don't have a say in who is in charge. And then when they do make decisions that are against us, we're like, oh, see, that's why I don't vote.
Miss Daniels, so these examples you're giving us, these are the examples you're getting, or the excuses you're getting from folks that you're trying to hire, and they're deciding not to come to work?
So there's two things, right? There's two parts of that. There are conversations I'm having with people who have left their employment, right? Because of the vaccine, right? They, when it's presented to them that in order to work in healthcare, pretty much in New York City, if not every hospital, close to every hospital, is requiring vaccine. When some people hear that, or they will ask that question up front, then they say, I'm not sure how I feel about the vaccine, so I'm not going to move forward with this interview or move forward with an offer. Then there are people who have been hired, I've hired them, who have left the hospital, right? Who have left the hospital because they do not agree with being forced to take the vaccine, which has been mandatory for a few months. So in order to work in some of the larger institutions throughout New York, and this is not just healthcare, it's mandatory. It's a part of the responsibility of working in a healthcare setting or in a large industry.
So are these people just lazy and sitting at home wanting to collect unemployment, or do you think there are valid reasons why? I mean, I know you're telling us the reasons you're hearing. Do you think that, you know, they're just using these as excuses because they want to sit at home? Or, I mean, the jobs that these people are turning down, right? Because, I kept hearing, people make more money sitting at home with unemployment than they make going to work. These jobs that these people are turning down, I think the average person was getting something like, I want to say maybe $700, between $500 and $700 a week with unemployment.
Okay.
I think between $500 and $800, because I think at least in New York, you got unemployment and then you got like the pandemic funds, which was like $300. So let's say $800 a week, right? The jobs that these people are turning down, is it $800 a week job that they're turning down?
It is really anything from $800 a week to, I want to say, maybe up to $3,000 to $5,000 a week. It is not just one group of people who are turning down jobs. It's doctors who are turning down jobs. It's nurses. It's finance people who are turning down jobs, right? It is CVS workers who may be turning down jobs. So it just isn't one category.
So the narrative then that is being perpetuated in the media about people lazy and it's unemployment why they're not going back to work, that's a false narrative then?
A lie.
No. So it's not a false narrative, right? And so we really can't say like why each individual is choosing not to come to work. But this is what I can say for sure. There was a strong period when people were being able to get this stimulus to stay home or money to stay home, right? Because of course people need to eat. And I'm all for it, right? People need the support when they need the support. And as some of the support started going away, there were a lot more people applying to work again. And some of the people who were, I'm just not ready to go back because I need to do my research. So I definitely can't stand here and say I'm the expert to know that everybody was saying that I'm not going to go back because I'm lazy. But that money helped people to stay at home a lot longer than it would have underneath other circumstances, right? And
Gotcha.
I'm seeing the rates popping up with how many people are looking for work and accepting jobs and applying for jobs compared to what I saw even 6 months ago.
So now that pandemic unemployment is being shut off, you're saying people are not coming back to the workforce?
People are coming back to the workforce. Right? And I want to say that people are not just coming back to any workforce. Some people have been very smart over this pandemic period. They have gotten certifications. They may have decided to enter back into school. They may have decided to change their career altogether. So they are coming back a little smarter in a lot of cases. They are not necessarily wanting to go back and did what they did pre-pandemic. Right?
That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. It is a good thing, which is why I'm saying for everyone, it's not the same story for everyone. And I know that there is absolutely, people around us who were giving us different reasons, different valid reasons. But I'm sure we all also know people who is absolutely, they're taking a moment now to say, hey, I'm going to do things differently, right? And the money running out is helping that.
Gotcha. So what are companies doing? Because I couldn't understand, right? The vaccine mandate came out, right? And the hospitals, the police departments, the fire departments,
the Board of Education.
Board of Education, right? All these government agencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or public service agencies were getting rid of folks while at the same time crying that they don't have folks to come and work. I felt like that was, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, the words aren't coming to me, but almost like a double-edged sword, right? So you're saying, oh, we have a lack of staff, people to hire, while at the same time you're getting rid of people. And what was interesting to me is that you were getting rid of people who were working through the pandemic, who used gloves and masks to beat COVID.
Right.
So those folks now, you're discarding them. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. Right? And now you're saying, we can't find people. Well, you just fired a bunch of people. Who's disingenuous?
Right.
How? Go ahead.
What's my take on that?
Yeah.
So I wanna speak from like a company perspective. With larger institutions, right? And I think this is just not New York, but with larger institutions, there are a lot of connections, right? A lot of different like stems, like on a tree, right? And so because of those connections, sometimes these decisions are getting tied right back to politics.
Yes, sir.
Right. And earlier, when someone mentioned like who we vote for and who's representing people, tie back into this, it absolutely does. Because this mandatory vaccination didn't really start because a company said, hey, I think it's a great idea that we have this mandatory vaccination. It came from somewhere, right? All of this is pointing back to something, right? And so when we talk about these political agendas, you can't have companies who are connected to the government and getting funds in a lot of different ways. You can't have companies then say, okay, here's the agenda that's coming from, New York State or the president, and then just be like, oh, we're not going to do that. It absolutely does tie back to the top and what the top is saying that they want. Right? And so some of these companies are going to be able to act independently, but a lot of them won't be able to act independently because their hands are tied. Right? Like, how do we turn around and let people go when we are in need, right? To make sure that like bodies are in place to get the job done. But it's because it's a bigger agenda than what we can see. Right? And we also have to be mindful that this vaccine, like, although for us it's a big deal, vaccines have really been in place for a long time. People can't come into certain countries without being vaccinated, right? And so when people are like, I don't trust vaccines, but we've all, as citizens, have been vaccinated, it is like, okay, we have to, like, really figure out here, obviously, there's something else behind your company just saying that they need you to be vaccinated.
You said a couple of things. So you mentioned doctors were leaving their jobs because of the vaccine mandate, and so I hear people say that a lot, and I don't want to make this a vaccine conversation,
Mm-hmm.
But I hear people say this a lot that, oh, people have been vaccinated before. I don't know what the trepidation is. And, I'm like, medical professionals are leaving their profession because of this vaccine. It's not a vaccine issue. It's
Mm-hmm.
this vaccine issue. And so I think, we kind of lump people in a box when we like make general statements like that. And you're not the first person I've heard say it, that we've been vaccinated before. I don't know what's the issue now. Yeah, the issue is some people feel like there's an issue with this one. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't want to make this a vaccine conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how did the hospitals then cope with this lack of staffing?
They're still coping with it. How do they cope? There are people who are still being hired to replace people who are leaving or
People
who
are
have left.
still leaving?
People are leaving still. And it is not just the hospital industry. People are leaving all sorts of industries right now because they feel strongly about not being forced into something they're not ready to do for whatever reason. And so, yes,
Gotcha.
absolutely, they're still leaving, right? They are making decisions to go elsewhere. They're moving out of New York. They are going into different industries. They're finding jobs that may not have mandatory vaccines as a part of the requirement.
So let's bring it to current events. So the vaccine mandates have been stayed, right? The courts have stayed the vaccine mandate. What are hospitals or what are companies doing as it relates as it relates to the vaccine? Do they still have their mandates in place? Like how did the company pivot when the law changed? Well, they adopted the law when it happened. It's funny, now it's not a law anymore. It can't be implemented anymore. What are the companies doing? Are they still enforcing the mandates?
What do you mean it can't be anymore? Where did you get that information?
I thought the vaccine mandates that was placed on the companies have been stayed. So the OSHA cannot require companies to do that anymore because it's in the court. So I forget, it must be sometime last week, a judge put a stay on the vaccine mandate.
So I believe, and let's go back and fact check if we're both wrong, but I believe what happened last week was regarding religious observance, not the vaccine on a whole. Right. So religious observance was something that some companies weren't taking into account. They weren't, respecting that portion, religious observant or not. If you're not vaccinated, you're not going to work here. I think that was something that was turned around last week. But absolutely, there are still companies that anybody who was requiring vaccinations before, I don't think that any company has turned that around to say, oh, no, now we're not going to require it. At least if that is the case, I haven't heard that. Companies are still requiring for people to be vaccinated.
What I found interesting is, since I came to this country, you've always been hearing capitalism, the government shouldn't be telling companies what to do, even though the government is always telling companies what to do. I haven't heard of companies out there like this. This to me would seem like a good marketing ploy to scoop up a lot of talent in the industry to, as a part of your recruitment, specify we're not requiring vaccines.
Yeah, it could be, right, depending on what company you are and who you're tied into. Right. And there is a lot of people who are able to scoop up employees now. I don't know if Amazon is one of the companies that's requiring vaccines. I feel like I know of a lot of people of late in the past 2 months who are like flocking to Amazon. They're offering a $3,000 bonus, signing bonus, hiring bonus. So I feel like maybe that's one of the companies that are benefiting from a lot of people leaving work, or walking away from their jobs. But in terms of most of the major companies, they're requiring people to be vaccinated. So yeah, if you can find, and they're out there, you can look on Indeed and find out who's requiring vaccinations and who's not. And some of these companies are definitely capitalizing on the issue, and even more, like a lot of companies out of state are capitalizing on the fact that there's so many people out of work and they are able to employ people remotely. You know, you don't necessarily need to be vaccinated if you're going to work remote. So yeah.
So, I thought whether you were working remotely or not, the mandate was the mandate. That's one.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I'm looking at CNBC.com here. The article is titled, "The Biden Administration Suspends Enforcement of Business Vaccine Mandate." This was 3 days ago. So what I recall was that there are a bunch of states challenging the vaccine mandate, and they're winning their challenges. And one specific challenge is what caused the mandate to have been suspended because it's being challenged. I'm not sure if they're going to reinitiate after the president tells the court how to decide. I'm sure they will reinitiate the mandate. But as of now, as far as what the news is saying, the mandate has been suspended. So I guess then companies are still moving as if the suspension isn't going, is what you're saying.
To my knowledge, I haven't heard of, and definitely the company that I work for, we are absolutely still having people making sure that people are vaccinated before they start.
Well, I think at some point it will then become a company policy issue as opposed to, a government mandate issue, because companies can choose to do whatever they want, especially in the right to work states. They can choose to do whatever they want.
Right.
And so, they're well within their rights to, require certain things to be in place before you become one of their staff. So
right.
But this is interesting. This is very interesting. Ms. Ababa, any questions? Rochelle?
Yes, I just wanted to add something. I think the reason that employers are able to have that free range is because there are no consequences associated. So, for example, in Florida, I know the governor there, he has literally signed a law stating if any business or school or anybody asks you your vaccine status or whatever, like, they can sue you. And I think when you have those consequences associated now with wealth, you're not going to abide by the rules or the laws of this state, then we're going to attach some, financial restraints or, some consequences against you. And I think that's why a lot of places, even if that's what's being said now, like you can't mandate these things, because there are no consequences, now employers are empowered, are emboldened to go ahead and do what they want to do.
Right. And putting it a part of their policy or a part of their requirements.
Yeah.
So there's
let me ask a question. Do any of you guys think that people not wanting to work is also a part of cryptocurrency and what's going on that end?
You got it.
Many people are making money in crypto?
Wait, you have to break that down a little further. What do you mean? That so many people are doing well off of crypto that they're walking away from employment?
Yeah.
Interesting. How many people you know that did so well
Like I need
that
to, I need to find
they're
out
like, I'm done working. I need to know where they're getting their info.
for real.
I mean, we got a friend, no?
No, he's still working, and he's
Okay.
working pretty hard, actually. I mean, he did make some good money, but yeah, that dude is hustling. He's
But that's
not
by
only
choice.
is he
You have
hustling.
to.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he said it to you. He doesn't. He did not make enough where he can stop working.
Yeah.
But Ali, so that's a good question, right? Because I do
Yeah.
think that the mindset is changing, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we all work to eat, to survive, to keep a roof over our heads, to make sure that our family has, what they need. But I think that people's mindsets are changing. I definitely
Right.
hear people going after careers that they love and not necessarily feeling like I'm going to give 8 hours or 10 or 12 hours a day over to a company to find out that I could be dropped at any moment. I definitely am hearing more conversation about people feeling like they want to take control over
Yes.
what they're doing and who they're giving their all to, pretty much. And if you can
Right.
do that for yourself,
Bye, Felicia.
right?
I
If you
agree,
can do that
Monique.
for
I
yourself.
think because I think even the amount of small businesses has increased over the pandemic because a lot of people I get notifications every morning and it's like, 5 ways to do side hustle to turn your side
Right.
hustle into your main hustle,
Right.
five jobs you can stay at home and do. And so I think there are way more options virtually, where you can stay at home and not do the traditional jobs, because I think it's the traditional jobs that are actually facing this problem. I
Right.
think a lot of jobs that are, that have catered to their employees, they're the ones that are actually benefiting at this time. As you said, Amazon is doing amazing. People are flocking to Amazon. I know, what company what was that? I think Google. Google, like their staff has never been let go. Like they're good because they were able to work from home. They're working from home for another year. They have so many time off. They have this. They have all of this. So therefore, Google has never had a problem with employment. As a matter of fact, last week I saw an article where this restaurant in Florida, they were like, we were having, a lot of people not working, we're having employment problems, but then we raised the minimum wage and we gave our workers health benefits, and now we have solved the employment problem. I was like, wow. All we had to do was actually pay people and just make sure they're healthy. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Right?
Right? That's wow, mind blown. So I think it's more on, are we giving the people, are we, I'm not saying to give them like everything and then you don't make a profit, but we can do way better as huge corporations that have been making billions of dollars, millions of dollars in profits every single year, and this trickle down economics has never trickled down to the employees. And I think the employees are now like, no, we got the power. We don't need this negative energy in our lives anymore.
Yeah. I think my VP mentioned something last week that I hadn't really thought of. And one of the things that he says is that he saw an article that said, hey, company, right? Like who's the candidate now, right? Saying that like professional people or people who have done their jobs really well are in a totally different position now, right? It's not that they need a company to hire them, right? But their companies out looking very hard. They're like people seeking professional people who have been in their fields for a while and have had success. Now companies are really looking for them. And although I think the millennials have definitely changed the game in a way that they would be able to go and ask for what they want and negotiate a great salary, we're back there. We're back there now where the candidate can actually ask for a lot more because there are not as many people flocking to jobs now. And the good ones, everybody wants. right? So it has definitely changed the game. And you're right, like healthcare, right? Healthcare which should be standard, right? Great healthcare, not just any healthcare. Great healthcare, which should be standard. There are a lot of things now that companies are going to entice with. Amazon not only enticed with the $3,000 extra, right? But they also started advertising how they were giving employees tuition, right? Tuition assistance, money for education. Not a lot of companies were stressing that before now. So,
and it's just crazy to me, Monique, just to add to what you're saying. It meant that all along they were able to do this, but they never valued their employees enough to do that. And now that they're between a rock and a hard place, they're like, oh, everything that we couldn't afford before, here you go. Everything that we never wanted to do before. So I think it's not that people are not wanting to work, but they're holding out for better. It's like that woman waiting for the best man. You know, like, it's okay.
Right.
I don't need to jump in right now. I can test the waters. See what's out there, you know, like.
And then you turn around and you're 60 and single.
No, you're not 60. You're 60 and you're a millionaire and you own your own company. So now you can choose which mate you want. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, let me ask you a question. Another question. Do you think that the dollar is getting weaker?
Oh.
Or are people getting lazier? Or is the cost of living going up? Let me simplify that question. Do you think that the dollar is getting weaker? Or do you feel feel as though people should just ultimately always be moving up in life and getting more money?
So the dollar has been weaker for a long time, right? And as we go on, the dollar is going to continue to get weaker, you know, hence, you know, why cryptocurrency, I think, is definitely doing so much better than anybody anticipated.
But I mean, like,
we are going to have inflation. We're going to continue to have inflation.
Should people, like, complain about the dollar getting weaker, or should they just work harder to make ends meet?
They shouldn't work harder. They should work smarter to make ends meet. The dollar is going to continue to get weak. So if anybody's relying on, you know, just like working harder and putting in more hours, then you are going to meet those consequences sooner or later. Right? We're not all farmers, right? We've already started, you know, transitioning in a lot of ways to make more money. So no, it's not a matter of now I have to grind more. Nope. We have to be smarter with what we're doing with our money. We have to be less wasteful with what we're doing with our money, because it's not going to get better.
So does that mean nobody should complain about gas prices getting higher?
So complain all you like. Where do you think the complaints are going to land? Who are your complaints going to go to? I guess that's what people
believe voting is, though. You know, voting is to get, you know what I mean? Like maybe your stuff that you're interested in to get down, and that's sort of like rallying. So I guess voting is the answer, right?
I don't
Hell no.
know.
Politicians get in office and do whatever they want right after they get elected. So voting ain't the answer.
So whether it was Trump right now or Biden, the gas would be high right now. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. Nope. I disagree.
am saying that.
I disagree. Okay. And here's why I disagree. Trump had 2 sources of oil coming into America that Biden stopped. Now, Biden stopped them for a good reason, but he stopped them. And that is contributing to the soaring oil prices. There was a pipeline coming from Canada into America that would have helped to lessen the prices of oil. That was stopped, and I think there was some mining going on someplace else. That was also stopped because it was interfering with some indigenous people. Like I said, he had good reasons to, but I don't think Trump would have stopped those. Like he initiated some of them. So, so I don't agree that the prices would still be the same. We would have to close our eyes and ignore the consequences of the actions. But I don't think that the prices would have stayed the same.
I disagree because I think that supply and demand has affected every industry, and I really think the pandemic would have still affected gas prices. Now, I didn't know about the one source of oil being cut off, but I definitely feel that the pandemic is a factor of why things are going to continue to be very expensive and why the prices that we could see for something like milk and eggs are almost doubled, right, since pre-pandemic. So I still think the gas prices would have been higher because of what's going on there.
My good friend Rochelle?
Yes.
What do you think? Should we complain about gas prices in an effort to make the prices go down, or should we just work smarter and harder to get more money because just automatically prices will always go up higher?
Who's the complaints?
But you see, Monique made a good point. She's like, if you complain, who are you going to complain to? Because you can say all you want to say, but it's going to fall on deaf ears. I think you have to make a hard choice. There are alternatives now for fossil fuel, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's more expensive to go and buy an electric car or a hybrid, but every single year you are going to be paying more because fossil fuel is literally running low, right? It's going to deplete over time. And the closer we get to that depletion level, then the demand is going to be higher, which automatically leads to the increase in prices. And that's why a long time ago, scientists have been saying we need to start moving to renewable sources of energy, which has nothing to do with unemployment. So I'm going to just bring it back there. So we can cry all we want, or we can actually be smart and start making moves so that we are ahead of the game. Because trust me, the gas prices are not going to go down. And even if they go down, they're going to go right back up in a couple of weeks. So it's only inevitable. But if we start investing, let's pressure or Congress or senators and say, listen, you need to all subsidize these solar cars. You need to start putting more money into these companies so that we're able to move away from fossil fuel and start moving towards renewable sources of energy for our homes, for our cars, for businesses, for everything that we do.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
I think that I'm in the mindset that as a people we can get everything done if we work together. The LGBT changed the whole law of same sexes not being able to get married by not complaining but getting together and uniting to change something. Yep. So I believe it can work the same way.
You're wrong, my brother.
Huh.
You're wrong.
You said I'm wrong?
Yes, sir.
Huh. Okay.
The reason,
I believe in the people.
The reason those laws were able to be changed, it was a multi-pronged effort. So there are a lot of lawmakers who believe in that lifestyle. There are a lot of people in that lifestyle who have a lot of discretionary income to pay for certain things being done. A lot of things, listen, this complaining idea to me is nonsensical, because nothing gets done in this country unless you pay to have it done. Nothing. So That's why we have lobbies. The lobbyist goes to the Hill and it pays these politicians money, and that's why we don't have sensible gun law, because the lobbyist goes and say, hey, here's $60,000. Make sure this vote doesn't pass. Here's $30,000. Here, this make sure this vote doesn't pass. So every area of our society where change has happened, it had, for lack of a better expression, it had a lobby, right? Civil rights didn't really need a lobby because those men that were lawmakers had to go home to their wives. so a lot of laws were changed because, again, the wives were home. But when it came to gay rights, they have a lobby, brother. When it comes to Jewish rights, they have a lobby. When it comes to gun rights, they have a lobby. Black folks don't have no lobby. They complain, they protest, but
we in the
nothing gets done.
backyard in the patio.
Nothing gets done because what will get things done is if, and we got way off on another tangent, you people. But what will allow things to get done is if, okay, so let me take that back. The civil rights did have a lobby because people used to donate to the civil rights fund. Less people donate now because they figure they got their rights. So the Civil Rights Action Fund or whatever doesn't have the financial resources it used to have. So they can't pay these lawmakers now to vote their way. The gay people, they send their money in to get things passed. All these other industries or indices, they send their money in and they get their laws passed. And we, as black people, we're sitting around begging for lawmakers to make laws that will benefit us. And then we cry,
but
and it doesn't happen.
Dre, I don't think it's just black people. I think it's people who are of the middle and lower class. And I think that is the biggest problem. Hold on. I think because we think, oh, it's black and white issues, it's not. Because if you're poor, you're poor. If you go to the gas station, whether you're black or white or yellow or orange or brown, your money, you don't have no money, right? And I think that is where we need to unite and say, listen, it's a us problem. It's not a me versus you problem. Because a lot of times, that is the problem. They pit us against each other, not realizing we are the same people facing the same hard decisions. Should we buy gas or should we buy groceries? And if we can't buy gas, how are we going to get to work to buy groceries? And this happens in every lower or middle class homes in America. That's not just black people. That's not just brown people. That's every color. Because money is what matters.
Well, I mentioned what I mentioned because Ali brought up gay. I mentioned the black people and getting things done because you're right. Minorities don't usually get certain things done for them. Asian people are minorities also. I don't see them protesting. Indian people are minorities also. I don't see them protesting. So those people go and get their money.
I do have to jump in, right? Because to some extent I agree with you may not see them protesting, right? But a protest isn't just coming in the form of the people who are marching, right? And I think that's where brown people get it wrong. I don't want to say black, right? Because it is, a lot of people included in brown, right? I think this is where we get it wrong. I think that from what we can see, the marches don't really produce a good result, right? What it does bring is some awareness, but in terms of results, it's not getting it done. And you mentioned the Asian people don't protest. In this past year, I don't know that were paying attention to the news a lot, but there was a lot of recognition brought to Asian people being hurt in whatever community they were in, right? And in this past year, because of all of that recognition and because of what Asian people may have been doing silently protesting and maybe even withholding money from certain areas, they were able to get laws passed specifically for them. True. Right? So the working together is definitely something that the Black community specifically, I think, we're not where we need to be. Like, yeah, we can show up for a protest, right? And I think it has its place. But I think now we need to show up for a silent protest, which is we're not spending money here.
Target neutralized.
Because that is really where you get stuff done.
The regular protests only pay the cops extra overtime money.
Yeah, of course it does, right? But when you say, and we've done it before, right? We've done it before in the 60s. We could see how not shopping in certain places and unfortunately not taking transportation, right, at that time affected the whole. And when it came down to the bottom line, guess what? Stuff was done. Not because of the marches in the street, but because it affected people's bottom line. And that's what we're not getting right. We can, if we focus in, right, just as an example, and this is nothing against Nike, but I'm just going to use them as an example because everybody knows what Nike is. If we just said we're not buying another set of Nikes, it would affect our own community. But guess what? It would also be like, all of a sudden, like if half of the people, because we know Black people will love some Nikes, if we just stopped, you don't think that they would be protesting for us? We wouldn't have to protest. They'd be like, no, we need to get whatever is the issue. We need to help them get this straightened out. And Nike does support the Black community. So I'm not picking on them. But I think we really need to focus and hone in on some of these companies that we are promoting by just purchasing, and they don't have our interest in heart. And this is what we have to
learn. Nike first. We got to start with something smaller than Nike, maybe McDonald's.
Perfect.
Oh, that would be. That's not smaller than Nike, though. That's not smaller. That's
right,
way bigger than Nike.
Block. Exactly. They're on every block.
It seems as though we're going to have a conversation around politics and society.
Because it all ties in.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we'll have an episode where we can where we can delve into these kind of fields of society. I want to thank you though, Miss Daniels. I'm not sure if did we miss anything?
No, I think we kind of touched on like a lot of the topic. I think we touched on like all the topics and all the reasons people are staying away, or the reasons the jobs aren't being filled. There are several different ones, and I think we did a really good job in addressing everything.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Miss Monique.
Yes, thank you
for having me again. I'll be back, guys. I'll be back.
Yes. And I'm happy I wasn't the only female today, so thank you so much. Thank you.
Jeez. Every time we're getting stabbed. All right. Guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. We see the messages that you guys send. We share it with each other, and it's so encouraging. So thank you guys so much. And please continue to show your support.
Big bless.
See you guys next time on
Share with a friend.
For sure. Yeah. Tell a friend.
Bye-bye.